I knew my grandfather had been a prisoner of war in Germany during World War II. We all knew, but nobody talked about it. As a child, however, I could not stop thinking about it. I tried to imagine what it might have been like, but I did not dare to ask. Nobody explicitly forbade me to do so, but I sensed it was the right thing to do. Such is the silent power of family secrecy. A few years ago, I decided to do systematic research on the issue of family secrecy around my grandfather's war experiences. I wanted to better understand this silence in my family. In that way, I hope to learn more about secrecy in families in general. I asked Paul Rosenblatt from the University of Minnesota to help me. He was one of my teachers as a qualitative researcher, and we had already done some research together. Researching one's own family can be called autoethnography. Autoethnography is a research approach that aims to describe and systematically analyze personal experience in order to understand social and cultural phenomena. In our research on family secrecy and war memories, we wanted to learn something about family secrets in general through the systematic study of the silences in my family. So I started to write down some of my childhood memories. I also went interviewing my mother, my father, and my aunts. And I started to gather all kinds of documents about the war. I discovered this piece of paper, for instance. My grandfather had it in his wallet when he died in 1987. He must have kept it in his wallet for 40 years, as he wrote it during the first month of the war. In Belgium, the war started on May 10, 1940. On May 29th, my grandfather became prisoner of war and was sent to a camp in Germany. I also found this picture of my grandfather. It was made at the beginning of his captivity in Stalag 17B, a prisoner of war camp with a forced labor regime. Stalag 17B is a famous POW camp because of the Billy Wilder film from 1953 with William Holden in the starring role. An important source of information for our research came from the letters my grandfather wrote to his family in Belgium. The repeated message in his letters was, "I'm okay." It is striking that he doesn't talk about his life in the camp. Except for mentioning his staying with a farmer, he doesn't say anything about it. This silence, together with his statement, "I'm more than okay here," might suggest that there was nothing special to report and that life was comfortable in the camp. From historical sources, however, we know that the food in German POW camps was inadequate in quantity as well as in quality. Of course, the brutality and dehumanization did not go as far as in extermination camps like Auschwitz and Dachau. Still, in a POW camp, the discipline was very strict and relentless. Furthermore, hygiene and sanitary conditions were extremely poor. So in my grandfather's letters, there was probably a lot to report on the living conditions in the camp. But they did not mention any details. Instead, in letter after letter, his main message to his family was, "I'm okay." This is one of the central questions in our paper. How can we understand my grandfather's silence in his letters to his family? What we learned is that although he told his family not to worry, just beneath the surface it is clear that he was living in circumstances that were threatening his selfhood in many ways. What burdened him is hinted at in stray words, but can be sensed especially in the space between words. But he kept silent about it in order to make life possible for himself and for those he loved. While this study, in many ways, has been a personal quest, it is important to highlight Paul Rosenblatt's contribution in helping me not to get lost in memories and family stories. This study led to reflections on silences in families. For one thing, it highlights some of the positive aspects of family secrecy. Our paper invites family therapists, when confronted with family secrecy in clinical practice, to carefully consider the potential destructive as well as the life-giving aspects of silences in families.